'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a Turbo Man was found, but there was one in Ted's house. The father couldn't find one, and that made him sad. He went to every store, and even fought 90s comedian Sinbad. He asked Santa for help, and Santa said, "We'll see. Now head off to bed. I've got to put presents under the tree." The house was quiet now. There wasn't a sound. As Santa picked up a cookie, Arnold Schwarzenegger yelled,
"Put that cookie down, now!"
Deck the halls, and welcome to another episode of Good Times with Bad Movies. I'm Paul Ireland. Joining me as always is my lovely and festive co-host, Tim Turbo Man Morrison. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Paul. How are you doing?
Really, dude, I'm really excited, actually. Really excited, Tim. Probably the most amped up I've been for an episode in maybe the history of this show. I think maybe Night Killer comes almost just as close to this, but I'm really excited because we're talking about 1996's Jingle All the Way from 20th Century Fox. This is a great pick for the holidays, Tim.
Yeah, this is an interesting movie for sure. This is the first time I've watched it since it came out, probably in 1996. I've maybe seen it randomly on TV here and there, but I've never really sat down and watched the whole thing. And yeah, I'm just as happy to discuss an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie as well. There's a lot of potential for some really weird stuff. And this movie is very strange.
This is something that I watch every year, just like Home Alone. I don't know why. It's a stupid holiday movie, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I think that's pretty much all you don't need an excuse, That's it.
One of the very few comedy movies that Arnold Schwarzenegger has done. Kindergarten Cop, Twins, Junior. I think that's supposed to be a comedy. I'm not sure. And he finally got to do a Christmas movie.
Honestly, there's a lot of movies that I think Arnold's in that are unintentionally funny. It's just it's the whole personality of Arnold, because this is like one impression that I think anybody could do, and you would know who they're doing if you just went people are like, "Oh, you're doing Arnold Schwarzenegger," and they'd be like, "Yeah, that's who I did." Anybody can do that, right? So there's something about the universality of Arnold and just how I don't know, like sometimes how extreme the movies are, and it just the lines they give him to say. And everything about Arnold is just awesome and hilarious.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of these actors where his personality and true character tends to transcend the characters that he's playing. Like, I can't remember what his name is in this movie, but I just see Arnold Schwarzenegger getting angry and getting upset and running around. To me, that's what the movie is.
Yeah, okay. So you brought this up now. I was thinking about when we discussed this. The reason why I think this movie is hilarious, and a lot of his other movies, is because you find out through these movies. We know Arnold. He's from Austria, heavy accent. In a lot of these movies, they give him just normal names, and they just expect you to buy that. And I think it's the funniest thing in this movie. In this movie, okay, his name is Howard Langston. All right, can you imagine Arnold walking up to be like, "I'm Howard Langston, just a normal guy." You'd be like, "What's up with the voice, though?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm from Texas, And be like, "Oh, yeah, this guy's just, maybe it's a Southern accent. I didn't know that, right?" There's just nothing normal about that. That you're just expected to buy the name and identity when the voice comes out. It's just like, it's hilarious. It's unintentionally hilarious. It's like a Mad TV skit. Is really what this is, but it's Arnold, and again, it's so much likability about this. This movie is amazing. However, there's also some stuff in here there's just crazy stuff that they have done in this movie that I can't wait to get to.
Yeah, I don't want to say much, but there is a lot of stuff that I found very questionable. This movie is very different than a lot of other Christmas movies.
Yes. I can't believe that this was like a family movie in 1996. Maybe we'll give you a quick little premise here in case you haven't seen this absolute gem of a holiday movie. Jingle All the Way is about a father who vows to get his son a Turbo Man action figure for Christmas. However, every store is sold out of them, and he must travel all over town and compete with everybody else in order to find one.
You know what's interesting, Paul? This movie came out the same year, the same Christmas, as the Tickle Me Elmo craze. So it's almost like a little bit of life imitating art. For people who don't know, I'm sure everyone knows who Elmo is from Sesame Street, but there was this toy way back in the day, around 1996, that made parents go insane. I mean, I guess we're kind of used to seeing people go crazy in Walmart and stuff now, but people were getting hurt and like injured.
There's always the hot toy every year, but I did, yeah, for whatever reason, I didn't notice that too. I remember that because the Tickle Me Elmo thing was crazy. For whatever reason, people were getting into fist fights over them, and they're selling them secondhand for like $400 kind of thing. Like the Tickle Me Elmo market was ruthless. It was cutthroat in 1996.
Paul, are you ready to jingle?
Yeah.
Are you ready to go all the way?
Yeah.
It's turbo time. So this movie starts out with a TV show very similar to the Power Rangers. It looks almost identical to the Power Rangers, except for a few main characters, Turbo Man and his little pink furry monster named Booster. And yeah, it's just a live action kids TV show. As we zoom out from the TV show, we see this kid. It's actually, his name is Jacob Lloyd, and he is the actor that plays Anakin Skywalker in the Star Wars movie, the episode 1, with all the pod racing and stuff. So I'm probably going to end up just calling him Anakin for the remainder of this movie because he just stands out to me so much more as Anakin than whatever his name is, Jamie.
Jamie.
So Jamie is sitting here. He's having a good time watching the TV show. However, he starts to get a little bit sad when he looks over and talks to his mom and realizes that his father's not home yet. And Jamie has a karate tournament later on this evening, or karate class, where he's going to get his purple belt, I believe. And apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger, his father, isn't around a lot, or he works too much. So Jamie's very skeptical that he's going to be there to witness him receiving this purple belt.
Yeah, that's right. Arnold Schwarzenegger is a titan of industry in this movie. Do you know what he sells, Tim?
Yeah, he sells mattresses. Yeah, mattresses.
Yeah, yeah, right. This guy is just so into selling mattresses, apparently, in this world. He's just such a workaholic. So Arnold Schwarzenegger here, he's on the phone, just talking to customers left, right, and center, solving problems. Apparently, he's the only one who can help these people with it just seems like normal orders, just like a bunch of returns. But he's the head honcho here. He's the big wheel, the big cheese at this place, and he's the only one who can sell these mattresses. So he's staying late right now, working overtime. And his secretary comes up to him and she's kind of flashing him little notes on the back of envelopes being like, like, you need to get out of here because Jamie's karate class is soon. And he sees and he's kind of ignoring it a little bit. And eventually he gets a phone call from Liz. And, throughout this whole thing, every time at the end of this little conversation he's having with everyone, he's always like, "You're my number one customer." So since his wife calls him now and he's in mattress mode, he's just selling these things hard, right?
I got to sell these mattresses.
Yeah, got to sell them. Get down on this mattress and try it. Yeah, so Liz is on the phone with him being like, "Are you going to get to karate class or what?" And he's like, "I've got it. I'm on time. Don't worry, I got it." And so he ends it off with, "You're my number one customer." So obviously she gets upset, hangs up the phone on him, and he's got to book it out of there and head straight into traffic right now.
He's having a rough time with the traffic. He's obviously speeding. He arrives. He walks in and it's over. There's nobody there. Not only is it over, it seems like he missed this by like an hour and a half. Like the lights are off. There's nobody in sight. There's like a janitor walking around. Yeah, he totally failed on being there for his son for his receiving his purple belt. And it seems like this is a habit of his. He's kind of not around enough. And every time he's not there, we see this sad look on Anakin Skywalker's face. He's very, very sad.
Almost as sad as when his planet got blown up,
Yeah. So Arnold Schwarzenegger gets home and he sees his neighbor up on the roof of Arnold Schwarzenegger's house. And he just got done putting Christmas lights all over Arnold's house. He did a nice favor for him. He noticed that his house was the only house on the street the day before Christmas Eve that doesn't have any lights. And he went up there and did it for him. And there's a lot of chatter in town amongst friends here with like Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife and Ted and other wives in the neighborhood where they're kind of always coming up to him and thanking him and being like, "Thanks for fixing my screen door. I baked you some cookies." And he's like, "Well, I'll make sure I come over tomorrow afternoon and get the cookies. They're so good."
His neighbor, this guy is Ted, all right? This guy in this movie is obviously played by the legendary Phil Hartman, R.I.P.
You may remember me from such films as
I'm Troy McClure. He's just got that perfect voice. That's what Phil Hartman has. It's like a
Perfect
perfect radio
radio
voice.
voice.
Yes, that's exactly what that is. It's amazing. You can't do it justice. This guy. And Ted is. I feel like we really need to acknowledge this. Ted is a creep. He's not really a villain. Maybe he's a bit of a foil. I don't really know, but like this guy he's a creepy neighbor. This is the creepiest guy around. If this was my neighbor, I would really be watching him.
Yeah, we're gonna find some examples here pretty shortly. He's really into being a handyman in the neighborhood when the husbands are at work. When the husbands aren't available or around, he likes to show up and fix your screen or fix a light bulb and eat your cookies. So little Anakin Skywalker here is super upset that Arnold didn't make it to his karate class. And he just won't have any of Arnold trying to be nice to him or trying to make up. Until Arnold kind of overhears him, or he sees like a poster or something in his room where he's like, "Oh yeah, you like Turbo Man, don't you?" And this kid lights up and he's like, "Yeah, I really, really want the Turbo Man action figure for Christmas." And Arnold kind of like the light bulb goes off, and you can see that this is his one-way ticket into getting his son to love him again. When Arnold mentions Turbo Man, Jamie lights up and he's like, "Oh, I want the one with the boomerang shooter, the rock and claw, and the jetpack with realistic voice activator and all this stuff." And you press a button on him and he stands up and he goes, "It's turbo time." And Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, "Yeah, absolutely, I'm going to get that for you." And Jamie's like, "All right, great, because anyone who doesn't have it is going to be a loser." No father wants their kid to be a loser. So Arnold makes the promise to get this toy for him. And he's going to save Christmas and win the love of his son, the love and affection.
Yeah. So this is Christmas Eve, right? Is that what's going on here?
No, this is the night before Christmas Eve. This is Christmas Eve.
Okay, this is December 23rd. Right on. Okay, that's right. I guess that's a huge factor in this movie here because, Arnold, he goes to bed now when he's talking to his wife Liz about Turbo Man and stuff. Now he's gonna get one for Jamie, and she's like, "Well, didn't you already get one? Because remember, like 2-3 weeks ago, I told you we should get a Turbo Man because this is what Jamie wants for Christmas, and it's gonna be really hard to find and probably sold out." And you just see this fear go over Arnold, and he realizes he's screwed up, and he goes, "Yeah, it's at the office. Oh yeah, no problem." So he goes to sleep that night. Obviously, he is in panic mode because the next morning he can't get out of that house fast enough to try to get out. And he's got to hit the town now and see if he can get himself a Turbo Man with karate grip and flying punches and realistic Turbo Man voices.
Yeah, so before Arnold Schwarzenegger boots it out of the house, his son asks him, he's like, "Hey, Dad, are you going to come to the parade later on with us? You didn't come last year. You definitely have to go this year, and Turbo Man's going to be there." So his father's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be there." Just like he says with every other thing that he doesn't show up for. So anyways, he makes this promise, and he's out and about to get into his car before Phil Hartman, Ted, his neighbor, comes over with an actual reindeer. He's using that for, I guess, his Christmas spirit, like decoration around the house. I feel like that's illegal. Isn't that like illegal or something? Can you just go grab a reindeer?
Let's keep livestock around the house just for Christmas decorations. That's right. I don't understand any of that. Yeah, not only is he creepy, but really annoying, this guy. So Arnold's going to go out now, and obviously he's a dad looking for a toy on Christmas Eve day. So where's he going to go? He's going to go to the toy store. And this is where we're going to meet his rival in this movie, Sinbad, 90s comedian Sinbad. And he is Myron. That's his name in this movie, Myron. Maybe you notice in this movie too, but maybe not. I feel like the character that Sinbad plays in this movie is slightly unhinged, potentially.
Yeah, he seems like he's on the verge of a mental breakdown, like any moment, constantly. And very erratic, potentially dangerous. He wants a turbo doll as well.
Yeah, he goes on a huge rant about basically how a bunch of these rich corporations are kind of making kids want all these toys before Christmas. And he kind of sounds like Alex Jones a bit in this, really, is what he kind of says.
He does, and he starts getting into this huge tirade about all of the letters being sent to Santa and like how crazy it makes him as a postman. And he starts going like, You don't know what it's like to feel like going on like this, and you're taking all these letters to Santa. Meanwhile, your wife's having an affair or something like that. And then, and he's like, and I'm gonna come out here and stand in this line, and I quote, buy this fruity little doll for my kid. And and then he starts like choking this woman. Not actually choking her, but like getting too caught up in his story, and like grabs her throat and starts shaking her. And there's like, oh wait, sorry, I'm getting carried away here. It's like, yeah, you're getting very carried away. Maybe you should go home and have a nap.
He's crazy. He's this man is on the edge.
One thing we're going to notice here, and it starts now, as they go into this store and they're searching for toys. It's a mob of people. People are going nuts, just like the Tickle Me Elmo ones. And everybody is overacting, like as far as what a character or what a real person would do. So Arnold Schwarzenegger can't find a toy, so naturally he goes to one of the helpers and asks them, hey, where can I find Turbo Man? And this guy starts like laughing maniacally and just utter uncontrol, like you mentioned unhinged a minute ago. Like this guy, they're all unhinged. They're almost like cartoons in the way they react to things, and they're just hamming it up laughing because they can't believe that any parent would come in here and ask for a toy that's as popular as Turbo Man 2 days before Christmas.
Yeah, there's people pointing and laughing at him now. All the parents are just like, "What, is this guy an idiot?"
By the way, one of these helpers, there's two of them, two of the staff. One of them looks just like what I would imagine a Who looks like from Dr. Seuss, like the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. This guy looks like a Who.
Yeah, he kind of does. He definitely has a mole quality about him. There's something,
or he might have even been in the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'm not gonna rag too much on this guy's appearance. It's Christmas time, but definitely he's got that. There's something about that nose there. You're like, I kind of know what you're saying.
Anyways, it's a mob now. People are just running around and fighting. And Arnold Schwarzenegger trips and he grabs this remote control car and like manages to slip up Sinbad. And so he falls, and it's almost like they're basically just having a rat race. Because there was one lady, someone said that they saw a lady walk out of the store with a Turbo Man action figure. So they're just having like a little mini rat race towards that figure. And it's like, I'm thinking like, as if she's actually going to give it to you. Like if she just walked out of that store, like hell, I'd be giving the toy that I just bought for someone else for a gift 2 days before Christmas to like, there's no chance I would be giving it to this crazy lunatic, this giant lunatic, Arnold Schwarzenegger, harassing me for a toy. No way. So of course she sees him, and then she slams on the gas and gets away.
Would you imagine that though? Just put yourself in this old lady's shoes. You're like, you're getting your stuff in your car, and all of a sudden this behemoth runs up to you like, give me a Turbo Man. You're like, what is going on right now? This guy's a psychopath. So this is what I'm talking about. This is definitely Exhibit A in the series I call Ted is a Creep. All right. So let's just paint you a picture right now. They're back at Arnold's house. Liz is making Christmas cookies. Looks like Ted's kid, little Johnny, he's out in the front and he's playing with Jamie. They're kind of messing around. They're playing Turbo Man, but obviously they're fighting over who gets to be Turbo Man. And Ted just shows up. He just takes the apron off her very suggestively and very seductively and smells her while he's taking it off. Okay, only we can see that. But he's smelling her. And he's like, you just go take a shower. I've got the sugar cookies. Don't worry, darling. Dad's got everything under control. And you're like, all right. And it's like, this guy's creepy. All right.
It is creepy. When he helps Arnold's wife take her apron off, the look that he gives while he's doing it like on his face is really, really unnerving. Like he looks like he's in ecstasy, or what you might want someone to be experiencing an orgasm to look like. It's a little creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, you would I honestly feel like if you selectively cut this movie and put ominous music over it, you could probably make this into some sort of thriller or a horror movie, potentially, just in the trailer alone. Some of the amount of stuff that you're like, that's not right. This should not be in the movie. And that face that he makes is one of them. You're like, all right, this guy is a total creeper. While Ted's waiting for these sugar cookies to bake, Arnold calls home and he's just trying to get in touch with Liz real quick. And Ted answers the phone. Arnold's asking where Liz is, and he's like, hey, she's in the shower. Don't want to go get her? And he's like, no.
Don't go into the shower.
Yes. Meanwhile, Ted's eating these cookies, and he's just having a great time. We just need to play you. I mean, this is the most iconic, well, one of the most iconic lines in this movie. If you've ever listened to a 90s internet clipboard of Arnold Schwarzenegger, or just existed on this planet for the last 30 years, you have probably heard this part. And we need to go over the best part of this thing.
Oh, these cookies! I gotta get the recipe from Les. Put that cookie down now!
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's weird. Okay, so I've been trying to hold off from getting into this for a little bit now. Do you find it odd that there's this much sexual overtones in this Christmas movie that I'm pretty sure is for kids, right? Like this is not for adults, right?
This movie is allegedly for children. Yeah, I would say so. However, this is like when you see stuff like in Disney movies or certain Pixar movies, stuff like that, where you're like, was a joke for adults.
This feels a little bit more on the nose.
Yeah, I just feel like in this movie, the jokes for the adults sort of overtook more of that, and maybe that's maybe it's supposed to be ironic, or maybe there's supposed to be some sort of tongue in cheek messaging in there. I don't know. However, yeah, when you're an adult, when you watch this, you're like, what is going on right now? What is
These cookies are so good.
Not even why is he in my house, but why is he allowed anywhere within a 100-foot radius of children or a school?
So right after that super creepy phone call, Arnold Schwarzenegger's on the street and he meets up with Miriam again, Sinbad. And Sinbad shares that he has overheard that there's a store doing a free giveaway for a like a special edition Turbo Man action figure or something. So, of course, they're going to run over to the store and try and get that doll. So they get there, and this mob is even crazier than the last one we saw at the store. These guys are crazy. They are like shoulder to shoulder, like they're waiting to get in to see the Rolling Stones or something. And they're like chanting and yelling. You can't tell what anybody's saying, though. It's like almost inaudible nonsense. And there's a guy with he's like one of the workers, one of the staff members, probably the supervisor or something. He's like standing on this chair and he has this like Fisher Price microphone cassette player like hanging around his neck, and he's using that as like a makeshift megaphone. And for some reason that's actually working. Anyways, he tells them that everyone's going to draw a ball, and then whoever gets a certain one gets the toy. I didn't really understand this. Did you, Paul?
It sounds like what's going to happen is everybody's going to get into a line, and they're going to get a ball, and then the balls are going to be drawn out as sort of a lottery style fashion, and certain people will be able to then purchase a doll because they only have a certain amount of these dolls. That's what's going to happen here. So that's the thing. That's why these people are getting probably more and more crazier as the days going on. They're getting more and more desperate, right? Because there's only a few dolls out there. Now your Christmas Eve day, you're out here trying to fight. They're in the Mall of America. So I think this is one of the biggest malls in the States, in North America too right now. So there's probably a ton of people in there. There's like a couple hundred people fighting each other for a Turbo Man doll right now. There's probably like 10 of them. So this is about to get interesting, Tim. That's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, basically the crowd just rushes in, and instead of people being handed out balls, they all go flying up in the air, and then everyone goes crazy because everyone wants to get a ball so that they can get one of these figures. And it's pandemonium. People are all over the place, climbing over each other, screaming, crying. Some appear to be wrestling. And Sinbad manages to get his hands on one ball. And what do you think he does? He just stands there and starts dancing like a leprechaun. We're like, hee, I've got the ball now. And of course, he gets tackled by like a few people. And then when he goes down, he lets go of the ball, like drops it. It goes flying down the hallway. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's going after it too, and he like dives on the floor to get it and slides, but doesn't get it. So it goes down onto like a lower level into this play area where there's a bunch of kids playing, like there's a ball pit and all that kind of stuff. And now we get to see what everybody wants to see: Arnold Schwarzenegger rolling around in a ball pit with children.
Yeah, this thing had some serious momentum on it. This ball was bouncing hard.
I feel like scenes like this were probably written specifically for Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't understand. Like, is the idea, like, I just picture people being in like a meeting, like writers, and they're like, wouldn't it be really fun to see Arnold Schwarzenegger like roll around in a children's ball pit? Like, how can we do that?
I think it's like twins. You know what I mean? They're like, Arnold looks funny with a little person beside him. No offense, Danny DeVito, but And it's like Kindergarten Cop. They're like, this guy's great with little children because, again, this behemoth of a man is not somebody that you would expect to be consorting with children or even just having children of his own. It just doesn't seem possible. He's another kind of human. This man, it's just a specimen is what Arnie is. And he's rolling around in a ball pit in the Mall of America chasing a little kid who caught the ball.
Meanwhile, in the ball pit, Arnold Schwarzenegger is trying to reason with this little kid. This kid can't be any more than like 4 or 5 years old, to give Arnold Schwarzenegger the ball. This kid has the ball. Arnold Schwarzenegger wants it, and this kid won't. And it seems as though Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to take it from him. So he reaches over to get it, and then no sooner he gets smacked in the face with a purse. And then, like, out of nowhere, this mob of mothers come in because they think that Arnold Schwarzenegger is a pedophile in the ball pit trying to molest this kid. I mean, they're called, and I'm not exaggerating. They call him a filthy pervert, and they're like smacking him and like calling him, names and stuff like that. And it's like, again, like, this movie's for kids, right?
It's supposed to be.
What are these jokes for? These are, like I said, I'm going to rant about this more, but these are one of the many examples of why I call this a very strange Christmas movie.
It definitely evokes the thought of, this is going to give your children some very interesting questions for you to explain later on. Honestly, that's what it seems like. This is for kids, but I would be like, you should be like probably 10, maybe, before you watch some of this, because it's some awkward things you got to explain to people. Should be laughing. Serious subject matter here, right? So Arnold gets expelled from the ball pit and nearly gets put on some sort of watch list, and he walks away in a huff. And he walks by. He just, for whatever reason, just walks up to a Santa village. I don't know why. He just figures that's what he's going to do.
If you're that desperate for a Turbo Man, you just start walking up to Santa Clauses in the mall and be like, "Hey, Santa, can you help me?"
Yeah, so Arnold walks up to Santa here, this really sketchy Santa. Apparently, turns out to be Jim Belushi, and he's going to take him across town to a very shady warehouse where there's a bunch of people dressed up like Santas and Mrs. Claus and elves, and it looks like they're making counterfeit toys. I guess that's what's going on here. Or they're moving hot items. That's definitely what it seems like. This is a very elaborate operation they have for toys.
It's like the underground crime world of the Santa Clauses. Like, it's just, yeah, they have a whole bunch of, and it's funny that they're all dressed as Santa. This whole part, I will say, this made me laugh quite a bit because it's so darn foolish. Like, these Santa Clauses take what they're doing very serious.
I want to point something out here real quick too. Santa's friend, the elf here, is Mickey from Seinfeld. Just another Seinfeld connection going on there. Love this guy.
Yeah, Kramer's little friend.
Yeah, Mickey hands Arnold a toy here. He hands him a wrapped up box that is presumably Turbo Man. So, they make the trade off. Arnold gives him the money, and he opens the box and realizes what he's got is a Turbo Man that's kind of falling apart and apparently just speaks Spanish. And we have a bit of a standoff here, and now it looks like Santa is just calling him out, making fun of Arnold, calling him a chicken.
Yeah, he goes all in on the chicken by calling him a chicken. Again, it's one of these very exaggerated ways of someone calling someone a chicken. He actually starts like full on body dancing around and doing a rather good chicken impression. And Arnold Schwarzenegger has to fight in every movie, so here we are.
Yeah, this guy goes full on Arrested Development with the whole chicken dance. And that's the red button for Arnold, it looks like. So Arnold just lays him out. And all of a sudden, just another 6 Santas jump in. So a circle now sort of forms around Arnold, and he's fighting a bunch of the Santas. And out of the pack steps the Big Show himself, dressed up like a Santa Claus, shirtless, muscly Santa Claus here.
WWE superstar, the Big Show. Arnold Schwarzenegger falls down, and the Big Show picks him up and winds up to punch him. But as he picks Arnold Schwarzenegger back up, there's this tiny little Santa on Arnold Schwarzenegger's shoulders. He's so tiny that you would assume that he would be an elf, but for some reason, he is a Santa Claus. And as far as I know, this is the first appearance of that actor that plays Mini-Me in the Austin Powers movies.
Oh, Vern Troyer, that's right.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing him prior to this movie. He doesn't talk. In fact, his voice is just like overdubbed with this sped up little munchkin voice, like one of the munchkins from like The Wizard of Oz or something. He's like, oh, stuff like that. It's really weird. And the big show misses Arnold and punches this little fella really hard. So hard that he flies across the room and slams into a pole, and he's presumably dead. Right after the little guy is disposed of, the cops come rushing in, and this is a bust. It's an underground crime Santa Claus bust. They're coming in like they've just seized like a few $1,000,000 worth of cocaine. But it's basically they're here to take all these Santa Clauses away. Which it's kind of sad because who's going to deliver all these toys? Arnold Schwarzenegger finds a toy badge amongst all the random toys laying around, and he picks it up. And because he's the only person that isn't dressed as Santa Claus, I guess the cops assume that they believe him when he shows them this toy badge, and he tells them that he's been undercover trying to like bust this crime syndicate for a while now, and basically just starts roasting the cops and disparaging them with their sloppy police work and stuff.
As he flashes his dollar store badge. Don't you know I'm part of the Marshmallow Task Force? But yeah, it's enough for him to fool him and just get the heck out of there. Because I mean, look at Arnold too. If this guy started yelling at you, how much of an intimidating figure Arnold is in this movie. You'd be like, geez Louise, all right, I believe this guy. I'm going to get the hell out of here, you know? And he's like, what are you doing? Don't stand there, arrest someone. I'd be like, all right, sir, yes, I'm going to go arrest somebody. It's just, it's a believable guy, you know, at least in that sense. And Arnold, he books it out of there. And he drives home, or he's trying to drive home, it seems like. And unfortunately, he's not having any luck, and his car runs out of gas. And so he kind of pushes it to a rest stop, or a restaurant, I guess is what it is, really. And he goes into the restaurant, and he calls Jamie. He's like, Jamie, I'm going to make it. I'm a little late, or whatever. And, you know, Jamie is really upset about the whole thing, because he's just like, you know, Dad, you're always just promising that you're always going to do stuff, and you're going to show up, and you never do. So Jamie's obviously very heartbroken and just kind of hangs up the phone.
As he hangs up the phone, like he says to his father, he says, you never keep your promises. You never do anything right. You never do anything you're supposed to do. And he hangs up on him. And the kid like cries and runs upstairs. And his mother is standing behind him in the hallway with her arms folded and shaking her head. She goes, damn you, Howard.
You care more about those mattresses than you do your own family. Come on. Arnold's deep in the game. He's grinding for those mattresses. That's just what he does. This is my life. The mattress game. I've been in this since 81. So Arnold goes and he's all frustrated. So he's going to have himself a coffee right now. And Isaac Hayes pours him a coffee. And, you know, he looks over and there's Sinbad. Sinbad's sitting there. He's having coffee too in this place as well. We need to talk about something again in this movie where you'd be like, A, who wrote this and who agreed on this, and then B, why is this for kids? What is going on here? Because so Sinbad, he's sitting here telling this guy all about his problems, and Sinbad mentions that when he was a kid, there was this one toy he really, really wanted and didn't get it, and there's another kid on the street. And he got the toy. And this kid ended up being a billionaire. And Sinbad is just, you know, he's a divorced parent. And he's basically living paycheck to paycheck trying to support his kid. And he's a working dad. And he's having a really hard time at Christmas time. And he's really upset. We have a moment here where Arnold is just sort of taking this whole life story in. Okay. As he does it, he now sort of sees Jamie, young Jamie, as Sinbad, okay? He's dressed up in the postman outfit, and he's sitting there, and he's drinking. This little kid has got like a Mickey in his hand.
That's big. That's bigger than a Mickey. That's like a pint. That's like a pint of whiskey.
Yeah, this kid is chugging a bunch of booze
right out of the bottle.
He's just drinking. This kid is just chugging back a bunch of booze with a little mailman hat on right in front of Arnold.
Yeah. And I think it's weird to me that this movie chose this path. Like, just as like Arnold Schwarzenegger is worried that if he does not get his son Turbo Man, the toy that he wanted, then he's going to end up like Sinbad here. He's going to grow up to be a loser. And first off, what is this movie's problem with postal workers? If I was a postal worker, I might be offended by this. Because it's like painting like Sinbad to be just a loser because he's an adult with a failing marriage and he's a postal worker.
I don't exactly know when the first time somebody went, quote, postal. But I know, that was definitely a term in the 90s. That was, I heard that a few times, right? Someone like, oh, this guy's going to go postal one day,
That's true.
It's, unfortunately, to me, being a mailman seems like a pretty great gig, honestly, because it's like you're just getting fresh air, you're hanging out, no one's bothering you. You could just sit there, rock your little earphones and just deliver mail all day in the sunshine. That sounds great to me. I don't, so and probably the benefits are all right too. Maybe not. I don't know. But it's, yeah, that sounds like one of those things in school where the teachers were like, you better pay attention or you're gonna be a garbage man. And I was like, everyone was a kid, everyone laughed. And now I'm like, they got pretty good benefits. Pretty sure they got dental and pension. So they're doing all right. So what happens is while I guess they have this kid drinking in this restaurant, they come back to the radio, and they hear somebody announce that they're giving away a Turbo Man doll, and they have to call into the radio station and give the names of Santa's reindeer. So Arnold and Sinbad both run to the payphone and they start fighting each other. Arnold gets in there first, and they have this crazy phone booth fight, and unfortunately the receiver gets ripped off by Sinbad. So Arnold kind of beats him with it a few times. So Isaac Hayes mentions that a couple blocks down the road, that's where the radio station is, and maybe if you run fast enough, maybe you can get the answer in time. So they both just hoof it down the street now.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is like running and singing the names like he's kind of like in repetition, so he'll remember Dash or Dancer. It's just funny the way he said Dash or Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, come to Cupid, down Blitzen, over and over and over.
That's a tongue twister right there. Right? You'd like say that 10 times as Arnold.
And like if he already knows it, why is he saying it over and over and over? I guess he's just really giddy because he's finally gonna get this toy.
So again, this is another part in this movie where you're like, I just add it to the list, the ever-growing list of how is this for kids and why would you do this? But it looks like Arnold kind of shows up just a second or two before Sinbad shows up. The door is locked on the studio, but it doesn't matter because Arnold just punches the door in. So you have this giant man screaming at you. He's yelling the names of Santa's reindeers while he kicks in your window. Okay, Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice doing that Dancer, Prancer, classic human. Then he's just like attacking you. and the poor radio DJ's like, hey, what's going on here? And they're like, give me the doll, give me the doll. It's like, I don't have the doll here. What I have is a voucher for a doll. This is guaranteed at one of the toy stores, but when they get them. So,
yeah, if they get a gift card, basically.
So obviously, they're not too happy about this. And Sinbad, first of all, before they even got to this part, I guess, we should mention he pulled out a package and screamed that it was a bomb. He wanted to try to control the situation and get the Turbo Man doll and said he had a bomb, okay? And 2 seconds after this whole thing happens and they realize it's a gift certificate, the cops show up. So Arnold tries to make a break for it. Sinbad tries to make a break for it, and they're stopped in the lobby of the elevators, okay? And once again, Sinbad pulls out another package. And in the next, again, for the second time in probably about 3 minutes on screen, he screams he has a bomb again.
And by this time, the cops have called, the radio DJ called 911. And the cops have arrived. They're all in the hallway. There's 14, I counted, there's at least 14 guns pointed at Sinbad. This is like a square space of like maybe like 12 by 12. This isn't like a really long hallway, and these guns are all pointed in every direction. This is very unsafe. So yeah, he says that he has another bomb. So just a second ago, when he had the bomb, it fell on the floor and it just started playing music. So it was like obviously some kind of like a ballerina jewelry box or something like that. He pulls the same trick again here 5 minutes later in front of the cops, and Arnold Schwarzenegger seems like he's still just as scared again. Even though he pulled the same trick this like a minute ago, he's like, oh no, this one's actually a bomb, maybe. But I mean, with that said, Sinbad's crazy, so I might just be weary of it anyways.
Yeah, I think that's fair too. But there's also 14 guns drawn on him, like you said too. So that's a moment for anybody to just sort of stop and reflect on what is going on.
Arnold Schwarzenegger boots it down the stairwell, Sinbad decides to take the stairs, which one thing I found funny, he puts the bomb on the floor and then slowly backs into the elevator. Like, why did the cops not stop him? He put the bomb down. Like, what's the point?
Yeah, maybe he's got a detonator on him. You know, they don't really know. This is the Sinbad in this movie is very unhinged. So yeah, I'd be a little worried too. You know, and it seems like most of the police are worried, except for the chief here, because he tells them that he's been on the bomb squad for 10 years now.
Yeah, he has lots of experience.
That's right, and he's like, this is not a bomb. Don't worry, guys. So he basically, sniffs the package, listens to it. He's like, this is nothing. We're all good, guys. He opens the package, okay, and by this time, Arnold has made it out the front door, and Sinbad has also made it out as well, okay? And a giant explosion just goes off now at the top. And what we're left with is basically a Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny, Leslie Nielsen sort of moment where this guy's got this exploded package in his hand and everybody's okay, but he's just covered in soot or something and his hair is just, this guy's hair is crazy.
I've heard the term dirty bomb used before. I know that's not actually for a bomb that's literally dirty, but if it were, that's what this is. This is a dirty bomb. It seems like it was a bunch of tar wrapped around a little bomb, and it just went off, and the person holding it got really dirty. Every other cop, there's like 14 around him, all within like 5 feet, and they're all untouched. But this guy is full of smoke, and he's covered with black gook, and his hair is really messy. So I don't know what kind of bomb this was, but yeah, it's a bomb, I guess.
I like that. We'll call it a dirty bomb. That's great. It's the cousin to the glitter bomb, the dirty bomb. Dirty bomb. Bop. I'm like, bop, bop.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger is feeling very defeated. He is down on his luck. He's going home. And just as he's standing outside his driveway, he remembers that Ted, his neighbor, his creepy neighbor, mentioned that he has a Turbo Man for his own son underneath their Christmas tree already. So, Christmas spirit, Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to go into their house, his neighbor's house, this super creep of a neighbor, by the way, and he's going to steal the toy, not from his neighbor, but from his neighbor's son, who is the same age as Jamie, Anakin Skywalker, Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. He actually does, too. He sneaks into his house. Christmas movie. This is a Christmas movie. And this guy is breaking and entering. He's not literally breaking his way in, but he is totally breaking into somebody's house to steal their Christmas toy so that he can give it to his son. There just happens to be a bunch of carolers outside, like standing beside his house. And while he's stealing this toy, Ted is at Arnold Schwarzenegger's house with his wife, with his arm around her, and they're like dancing, watching these carolers. And Arnold Schwarzenegger walks out, and he's just about outside, and then he looks at the tag, and he sees, "To Johnny from your loving father." And Arnold Schwarzenegger questions to himself. He looks like kind of disgusted. He's like, "What have I become? What am I doing? I can't do this. I can't do this. What have I become? I can't do it." So
I've become a monster. No,
I'm a monster. I get to put this present back. So he decides to put the present back. But as he's about to put it back, this reindeer from earlier, like an actual real reindeer, is inside of the house and sees Arnold Schwarzenegger and starts chasing around the house like he's a dog. And he's like even growling and stuff. Like this deer growls and roars like a bear.
Yeah, this reindeer is really vicious. It's like a guard dog is really what's happening here. And it even, it knocks over a wise man and knocks its head off into a fire, knocks sand into a Christmas tree and sort of sets off the smoke detector. Arnold traps this reindeer in a room. But meanwhile, there's now kind of a fire breaking out in the front of Ted's house. So Arnold's trying to put this out while there's a bunch of carolers just singing at Ted's house with Ted creeping out watching his wife. And he just soccer punts this wise man's head through a window.
Yeah, the front window of the house. So it goes rolling and lands right in front of his wife and Ted. And Arnold Schwarzenegger standing in his neighbor's living room, in the front of this broken window, still holding the Turbo Man that he was going to steal. So he's been caught red-handed. And his wife is like, "What are you doing?" And Ted grabs it from him. He's like, rips it out of his hands. And he's like, "This is Johnny's Turbo Man." And Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, "It's not what you think." And it's like, what else is it supposed to look like? Like, this looks like you just broke into their house, smashed a window, almost caught the house on fire, and you're stealing toys from kids.
Yeah, this is a Christmas movie. That's right.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger is totally depressed about this, that he's been caught. His wife wants nothing to do with him right now. And her and Ted presumably go back to Arnold Schwarzenegger's house together. And right after they leave, the reindeer is still there just like looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Arnold winds back and punches this reindeer in the face and knocks it out. I feel like so going back to the writing room, someone was like, "You know, it would be really awesome. We need Arnold Schwarzenegger needs to punch one of the reindeer in the face. How can we do that? How can we do that? Write it in that like Ted just like gets a reindeer for Christmas decorations.
He's got to punch some sort of giant animal in the face in the movie. They're like,
you can't punch a dog. You can't punch a dog. That's too small. You get a reindeer.
Yeah, they're like, it's this or a bear. You get to choose. And he's like, give me the reindeer. I punch it in the face.
I punch it in the face. Which one is a Don or a Blitzel? I can punch it.
So that's right. And so, you know, Arnold now this is crazy again, because Arnold is sort of drowning his sorrows in the back of Ted's house, I guess. He's found some beer, it looks like. And him and the reindeer are apparently just chugging beers in the back now. That's what's going on here.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
His father.
Christmas movie. It's a kid's Christmas movie.
It is, while he's sitting here drinking the beer, Ted, his creepy neighbor, is going to the parade with Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife, and they each have their son in tow. And while they're in the back seat, like little Anakin Skywalker says, "I wish my dad was as cool as yours." And he's like, "Well, he wasn't that cool until my parents got a divorce. Your parents get a divorce. It did wonders for my parents."
This is a kid's movie. That's right.
Kids movie.
Kids Christmas movie. That's what this is. Holy crap. That's right. That's unbelievable. That's just, you know, and again, if you're 8 years old, you're like, "Mom, what's a divorce?" They're like, "Dad, don't worry about that."
Arnold Schwarzenegger decides to take a taxi to the parade because he has images in his mind of Ted eating his wife's cookies and potentially hitting on her. So he needs to get there and stop what potentially might happen. While Arnold Schwarzenegger is in the taxi, we go back to the car with Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife and his neighbor, Ted. The kids ask to get out of the car because they want to get a standing position to see Turbo Man when he comes down the parade. So basically, Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife is really sad because Arnold Schwarzenegger is such a crappy father, and she's tired of seeing her kids sad. Phil Hartman here, Ted, decides that this is a prime opportunity to potentially pick her up.
Ted is making a move.
Yeah. And he starts to saying, like, you know, if you ever need anybody to talk to, I'm here. You know I like you. And he's putting his hands on her and stuff, like caressing her shoulder. And you can see her kind of like she's uncomfortable with it. But I think in her mind, it appears as though she's not taking, it can't be serious. This can't be real kind of thing. And she's just kind of brushing him off, brushing his advances off more and more. The more she brushes him off, the more aggressive he gets with his advances, to a point where he makes eye contact with her and it's clear that he's going to go in for a kiss. And he says, "There's been enough time for talking." And he like leans in for a kiss with his eyes closed. And she like bashes him against the head with this giant like hot chocolate thermos or something.
Oh yeah. It's a thermos. Yeah, she crushes him with it. Fair enough.
Yeah, you know, okay. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve this, but I feel like there's been ample opportunity for her to get rid of him. Like, why would you be showering earlier, like with him in your house and stuff?
Yeah, that whole thing is really creepy.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, like, it seems like from my perspective, this guy Ted here, Phil Hartman, it seems to him that he thought this could actually work out, but She didn't seem to actually make him go away at all during this whole process until she just decided to hit him in the face with a thermos.
Yeah, it seems very strange that at no point in this movie Arnold and Liz never looked at each other and like, Ted's kind of weird and creepy, right? Like he was making some advances on me, or or I'll be like, yeah, that guy's a creep. He's a weirdo, whatever.
I don't like it when he eats your cookies.
That's my cookie. So there was something that there's a whole other side plot line to this in this movie that we haven't explained because it doesn't really matter too much. But Arnold throughout this whole movie has bumped into a police officer, this old guy, and he's just for this whole movie just accidentally hurt this guy. It's sort of like Mr. Magoo or something like that, where he just bumps into this guy and this guy just accidentally has the worst things happen to him, like a train will run him over, or his bike just falls apart, or he gets burnt, or a bunch of stuff happens to him. It's not good.
He's like the guy on Mr. Bean in the three-wheel car. He's just whatever he's around, he is just the brunt, gets the brunt of whatever's happening.
That's a genius comparison, Tim. I love that. That's exactly what is happening here. Arnold accidentally bullies him in this entire movie, and it's hilarious. So as Arnold is running down the road, he sees Ted and Liz moments before Liz just decides to beat him with the coffee pot. And it looks like Ted is going in for a move, and it looks like Liz is kind of almost entertaining this. So Arnold sees red now, and he is upset. So he's like, I can't get the Turbo Man. Ted's going to sleep with my wife. And he just runs off down the road and accidentally bumps into this police officer again. This guy's got bandaged hands, and for some reason, he's got like 40 coffees that he's carrying. They're like, hey, Chief, we know your hands are all messed up, but you want to get 6 of us coffee and just carry it for us? Could you do that? Something really hot? It's almost like a Jackass skit is what's happening right now. And Arnold, but it doesn't matter because Arnold just bumps right into him. And those coffees go, of course, all over this guy. And now we have a chase that just goes off in a completely different direction throughout the city.
Yeah, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is now on the run from the cops. This guy has broken into his neighbor's house, caught it on fire, and now he's on the run from the cops. And Arnold's just trying to get away. He'll go anywhere as he can right now. So he runs down this alleyway and opens this random door and goes into this back room where there's a bunch of people, and they're like, they've clearly mistaken him. Like, oh, you're here, come over, get suited up. We're still in point of view here for a moment until we see an elevator lift up, and like from point of view, and we see the whole outdoors. Like he's in the middle of the parade, and now we see a third person perspective, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed up as Turbo Man. He is Turbo Man now. He just happened to trip and fall his way while running from the cops into being the person that plays Turbo Man for this giant parade. By the way, how did they manage to get him into this float from like a building? He went into an alleyway, into a building, and then like through darkness, nonstop darkness, they managed to have him rise from the middle of a moving float.
Honestly, hats off to you. I didn't even think about that. I'm a complete idiot. I just accepted that. I was like, oh yeah, and then he just rises up from the ground. That's a good point. This is like, it's like the Ninja Turtles or something, or the Batman. They have like a sewer hooked up to an elevator or something. That's a great observation. How deep is this float? Maybe that's the real question.
Yeah. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is just loving it. He is filled with joy. He is posing, pointing to kids, doing YMCA type poses. So while he's posing around and having a good time, Turbo Man's little helper comes over and presses a button, and this like super one of a kind special edition Turbo Man action figure doll rises from below the float, presumably from the same area that Arnold Schwarzenegger just came from, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's like pumped. He's like, "Oh my god, I've got it! I've finally got the Turbo Man." And he's like caressing it.
I love this, yeah, because Arnold's just like, yes, 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 on the top of this float. He's dressed like Iron Man.
He puts it to his cheek and starts like nuzzling it and stuff. It's very weird. This is a growing man.
So while this is all going on and Arnold's having a good time, the saber-toothed tiger friend there, he mentions that Dementor, his arch nemesis, well, at least the guy who's playing Dementor, is going to be jumping on the float in a second. And you kind of see a shot where this guy who's dressed up in this sort of like a Brainiac meets Mysterio costume He's just having a smoke on the top of this roof, waiting for the float to come by, I guess. And then we see a fuzzy boa show up out of nowhere, apparently, and it rooks him in by the neck. So he's gone now. So obviously there's some sort of shenanigans at foot, we could say.
Booster tells Arnold Schwarzenegger here that he needs to give this doll away to somebody on the street, presumably a kid. So, being the great father that Arnold Schwarzenegger is, of course he points out his son. He goes, they turn the speakers up, and he goes, "You, Jamie, you're the one who's going to have it." And so Jamie, he climbs. He's really excited, and he climbs up onto the float and gets this Turbo Man action figure from Turbo Man because he doesn't recognize this giant Austrian voice who's his father. He thinks that this is actually Turbo Man.
The only guy in Minnesota who probably sounds like this too.
Yeah, he's probably the only person in this child's life that pronounces his kid like, "Jamie, it's you. Jamie, I've got Turbo Man for you." But this kid doesn't, he doesn't know. Can't tell it's his father. So he just feels super honored that he got a toy, the toy that he wanted from Turbo Man. No sooner after Jamie gets this Turbo Man doll, we see a grappling hook fly across his head and wrap around one of these, I don't know, one of the props or whatever for this float. And turns out it's this Brainiac guy. He's just got a giant brain for a costume and a helmet. And it turns out it's Sinbad. And he grappling hooks his way over to this float. It's funny that this is like a children's float with children's costumes and stuff, but apparently the grappling hooks and stuff and jetpacks are real, because we're going to see here in a second that Sinbad, in his deranged way of being here as a character, he shoots his hand off. He puts his hand into a fist and shoots it off and basically shoots Arnold Schwarzenegger in the face. Jamie puts the Turbo Man doll in his book bag because it's clear that Sinbad here wants to steal it from him. While Sinbad is distracted with that, Jamie runs up the middle of this float and takes Sinbad to Dick Kick City. So at this point, we basically have a full-blown attempted kidnapping underway, where Sinbad is chasing this kid. His father, Arnold Schwarzenegger here, is too busy dressed up as Turbo Man to really clue in that his kid is trying to be kidnapped. His wife, I don't know where she was. Last time we saw her, she was beating up Phil Hartman. So anyways, this kid is running and he finds an escape ladder and starts climbing the ladder. Sinbad, of course, chases him up this ladder and onto the roof. Then Arnold Schwarzenegger realizes what's going on. By the way, none of the cops are doing anything because they think it's all part of the act. Okay? He's a stunt kid. That's totally normal.
No wires, nothing. This kid's just going to climb up this building. We're going to chase him across with an adult.
Arnold Schwarzenegger realizes that Turbo Man has a jetpack. He has a fully functional jetpack.
Yep.
And he uses it. He turns it on and he flies very, very, very high up into the sky with some of the worst effects graphics I've seen in a while. And I mean, for 1996, this was still really bad. Arnold Schwarzenegger was clearly just laying down on a big giant green screen pillow and flailing his arms around as if he's supposed to be falling.
This is 90s Power Rangers level effects is basically what you have in a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. I'd argue that the Power Rangers were better.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, I think so. But he's just going to fly around. Meanwhile, his son's life is being endangered because he is climbing up the side of a Christmas tree on a building, trying to get away from a grown man dressed up in a brain suit, trying to chase him for his Turbo Man doll. That's what's going on in the Christmas movie right now.
Arnold Schwarzenegger keeps missing his attempts at rescuing Jamie and ends up on the ground. Jamie has climbed this giant decorative Christmas tree light thing, on top of this building. So he's up very, very high. Sinbad's right below him. This Christmas tree becomes unhinged, the wires snapped, and now they are extended almost like a plank that's extends 10 feet over the building. They are both hanging for dear life.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Arnold is just flying around, just crashing into just about everything. He even at one point just crashes into the side of the building, and he's just getting pummeled into it. So he turns off his jets and he falls and he hits the ground, probably like from 30 feet up. It just gets up seemingly unfazed and decides he's going to throw a boomerang. And that's apparently going to save the day. It's weird. Again, like this guy has threatened a bomb on you twice in knowing this man for about a day. Maybe not even a day. I think it's been about 7-8 hours. He's known this man. Okay. And he's now chased your kid up on the top of this building, endangering him. And you're going to throw a boomerang. But that's what he does. And it actually kind of works. And it knocks Sinbad off. And Sinbad grabs the Turbo Man on the way down. And I guess he's saved because he lands on top of a car from, again, probably 30, 40 feet up. And little Jamie falls down. And it looks like it's curtains for Jamie. And who's going to sweep in at the last second? But Turbo Man.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger as Turbo Man has his son Jamie in his arms like a baby. They land on the ground safely. His mom, Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife, is so relieved because she's the only one in this crowd that knew that this wasn't part of the show. So she's actually been terrified for real that her son was going to fall to his death. She's so relieved, and she says to Turbo Man, "You have no idea how much this means to me." His mom looks down at Jamie, and he has kind of a frown. And, Jamie's sad because, once again, in his eyes, his father is not here to see this awesome, cool moment. He says, "Jamie, you don't understand. Your father is not mad at all. In fact, he's very proud of you. He loves you more than anything in the whole wide world." And Jamie goes, "Well, how do you know that?" And here's the reveal that Arnold Schwarzenegger gives to his son.
Who would know better than me?
Dad? Howard?
Right here.
Okay, that last one at the end, Howard, that was his wife. She also didn't know that this man, this 6'8" man, was standing here above your son with an Austrian voice who says, "Your daddy loves you," and all this stuff. She had no idea. Howard? What? Really?
Yeah, this is almost like the Clark Kent glasses or something, right? He just wears this little mask and this little voice warper that slightly augments his voice, but doesn't even really. It's still a very thick accent. You would be like, is there a lot of people from Austria that live in his area? Is that what's going on here? They're like, it could be Frank down the street. I don't know.
It's like that only if Clark Kent actually had a strong Austrian accent.
So that's it. That's a big celebratory moment here. And it looks like little Jamie is going to get his Turbo Man for Christmas. Looks like Sinbad is apparently going to jail, I guess. So it doesn't really end good for him.
No, I mean, the bomb threats and all that, they got to catch up to you at some point.
I guess so. Yeah, you can't really. He also endangered a child's life at one point in this movie, like probably about 3 minutes before that. So that's also not great. He assaulted somebody too, stole something. So, I mean, but Arnold also tried to steal a kid's toy and kicked a flaming wise man's head through a window. And
Paul, you've hit the nail on the head. There are no angels here.
That's great. I mean, no one's perfect in this movie,
No, not during this Christmas.
No. Yeah, people in glass houses. That's what they should have called this movie.
Right before Sinbad is about to be hauled off to jail, Jamie asks Sinbad, like, "Why do you need this so bad?" He's like, "I need it for my son." And he's like, "Well, here, take it." And Arnold Schwarzenegger's like, "Jamie, why are you doing that? You love Turbo Man." And he's like, "Well, I've got the real Turbo Man at home." Because his father is Turbo Man. And yeah, high fives all around. The movie's over. Merry Christmas.
That's it. It's something else. This is shocking. Again, just think about all the stuff that happens in this movie here. So this is a kid's movie, okay? So yeah, you can go ahead now, Tim. We're at the end here. So just let loose. Tell me what you really think about Jingle All the Way.
I have some serious problems with this, and I don't want to sound like take a soapbox position or something, but from everything that I've been taught about Christmas, as far as what my parents instilled with me, This movie goes against like almost everything as far as the behaviors of people in this movie and what they idolize. There is no sense of Christmas spirit. The other thing is too, like I always think of like, so we were talking about how is this for kids? And I think we both agree that this is probably for kids because the humor in it is so wacky. I don't understand how this is supposed to appeal to an adult.
Well, I mean, now that we're saying this aloud and we're kind of going through this movie here, I'm really starting to think that like this. I mean, this is like in some ways supposed to be for kids, but I think the more that we talk about this and discuss these plot points aloud, I think that it's like it's this is more of an tongue-in-cheek sort of ironic Christmas movie, sort of sneering or snarking at the idea of like Christmas and really what it's like. It's like, in in Krampus, where just everybody at the start of the movie is just like hot and sweaty and they just hating each other at the start, punching each other in the face, trying to get Christmas presents. And the kids he's at, again, it's sort of like Home Alone where he's at a little recital and he punches somebody in the face and they get into a fight and you just see the family it's like the worst example of Christmas, right? Like they're having the worst time. And I think maybe that's kind of what they're doing. It's a resentful take of Christmas in the sense that it's like, it's just people being sort of pitted against their kids, like being like, well, you want to make your kid happy, right? You don't want your kid to be the loser, do you? You got to get them this thing, you got to get them this PlayStation or whatever. So I think that is supposed to be like I said before, the anti-consumerism message in there or something, which is supposed to be that's for adults.
Well, yeah, it is for adults.
It's like edibles, it's like edibles that look like actual candy, I should say. So it's like it looks like Skittles, but you're just like, oh, that's actually 250 milligrams in there. So don't eat that, kids. That's kind of what this movie almost seems like. It looks like it's for kids, but then you get into it and you're like, this is kind of some heavy stuff.
Yeah. So with all that said, I genuinely feel bad for a lot of kids who might see this movie who don't live the life that Jamie lives. Like the kid that you're supposed to identify with in this movie. We mentioned earlier, he has an amazing bedroom. He has toys up the yin yang and everything. He has lots and lots of stuff, but he's still not happy because he doesn't have the Turbo Man action figure.
It's like in Home Alone. Man, the McAllisters had a damn nice house, and they were going away to Europe and Florida and flying all the way in between just to kind of correct their mistakes. So I always, in movies, you always see this beautiful place, and it's always, to me as a kid, I was like, I always wanted this guy's house. Because I was like, Mom, my room sucks compared to this guy's room.
So I was comparing this movie a lot to Home Alone in my mind while I was watching it. And the biggest difference between this and Home Alone for me is how much I feel for Kevin's character a little bit. He at least has that arc where he takes his family for granted. And then by the end of the movie, when they come back, he realizes how much he doesn't like to be alone. And he's just happy to have his parents home for Christmas. And that's a pretty wholesome ending. This movie... The resolve with this movie is that, thank God, Arnold Schwarzenegger got his son the toy that he wanted, and therefore is able to live a life where he has the affection and love from his son that he desires because he got him this toy.
The heavy, subtle messaging aside, just like when you start writing down in bullet points some of the stuff that goes on in this movie, you're like, hold on a second. So in this movie, okay, there's a guy who's really putting out some very creepy Weinstein vibes, we'll call it. Some really gross vibes, right? You have Arnold giving beer to a reindeer, also punching it in the face. Okay. We have a kid drinking. Okay. We have a couple of bomb threats and guns being pulled on people. We have Santa fights with little people being assaulted. Again, we have Ted trying to definitely cop a feel on little Jamie's mom. We have, again, Sinbad endangering this little kid's life several times in this movie. The Chinese dog racist thing, like that whole stuff. There's a lot of things in here that you're like, wow, they thought this was a kid's movie. This is supposed to be a kid's movie.
Yeah, this is kind of twisted, man. So like again, we've mentioned this already. Is this for kids? Or is this for adults? I don't know who this movie is supposed to be for.
I don't know. This is like, now we're talking about this, like, this is actually kind of dark. This is not a good Christmas. I don't know if this is a good Christmas movie, but it's what we're doing, I guess. We just committed to it.
There's a reason why I haven't watched it again until now, because I remember thinking like, man, this kid is a spoiled brat. His father has like absolutely no moral fiber whatsoever. Like, so what? Now they've gotten this toy that totally just makes up for all the times, all the areas where he's lacking in his son's life and just missing important events.
Yeah, this is a morally devoid movie, you could say. But I think maybe it's supposed to be that way. I don't know. I'm that's it's like I think it's like Big Trouble in Little China. It's goofy, but you know it's goofy. But it's like in this, it's like it's dark, but you know it's dark. But it's supposed to be a kids movie.
This is the last time I'll say this. I feel like a bunch of writers got together where they knew that they had a Christmas movie to make and they had Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they were just like, okay, maybe he can have a creepy neighbor and maybe he can like go into a ball pit and everyone can call him a pervert when he starts like trying to steal toys from a kid. And wouldn't it be funny if Arnold Schwarzenegger punched a reindeer? Like it's just all these different things. I feel like they just came up with things to like, wouldn't it be funny if Arnold Schwarzenegger did this? And we got a Christmas movie. It's also unique as well that this movie doesn't take place on Christmas Day. We actually don't see Christmas Day at all.
Well, Christmas is sort of just like a background to the whole thing. It's not the most important thing. And again, that might actually be contributing to the ironic messaging in here. They're just like, we don't care about Christmas. It just takes place around Christmas. It's just him getting this toy. So I could see this as being a very cynical take on a Christmas movie. And, it's definitely not It's a Wonderful Life. That's for sure.
No.
Sometimes you got to go that wacky route, I guess. And 1996, that was where they were at with that. I don't know.
Even though I find this movie to be morally deplorable as far as the spirit of Christmas goes, I had fun watching Arnold Schwarzenegger doing all these funny, weird things, silly things, fighting a warehouse full of Santas. Just looking at it from that point of view, it's fun. And we got to squeeze in an Arnold movie. So, I guess it's like our little Christmas gift to us.
Yeah, I think so. That's a great way to look at it, Tim. Because it's so hard. There's so many Arnold movies that we could do. I'd really love to just do Total Recall, but even I would do an episode that's Total Recall and then another episode that's the Arnold Schwarzenegger commentary of Total Recall, because that's just is amazing. Because he basically is just like, this is the scene where I go in there and ask for the blue baker card, and then that happens, and he's like, get your ass to Mars. He's like, I said, get your ass to Mars, and that is it's about 2 hours of that. It's amazing.
Maybe we should leave it up to our listeners. If there's any Arnold Schwarzenegger movies that you would like us to do, by all means, let us know, and we will probably cover it.
We're getting close to the end of season 1 here with Good Times and Bad Movies. Obviously, this has been really fun doing this for just over a full calendar year. We're just going to round this down here with the last couple Christmas episodes, and then we're going to be back in the new year. And, we just really wanted to say thank you to everybody out there who's ever downloaded an episode. If you've ever followed us on YouTube or Instagram, anything like that, if you've ever told your friends about this, or just, you just download it and never listen to it, and you're listening now, thank you. Because, Tim and I, we see all the downloads all the time, and we can see, people showing up in different places, and we see the people that have been with us, the ride or dies from day one. So thank you for all of you guys for listening to this so far and staying with us here. We really, really appreciate it, because we're just two guys in our houses just talking smack about some bad movies, and we really appreciate that there's at least somebody else listening to this, because this takes a lot of time and a lot of hard work and sweat and blood and tears that go into this. So, thank you very much. And if you listening to this is honestly a gift enough to Tim and I, we really appreciate it. But if you do want to do something small for us for Christmas, just tell a friend. Tell somebody, just send them an episode. If you're like, hey, you know what? I think you might enjoy this one episode that we did about Footloose, or I know you did last summer, or just whatever. You're like, this might be up this person's alley. Send it to your friends and ask, say, what do you think? Because that even means more to us. That we can't thank you enough for all that. So we really want to say thank you. We love you all, and we appreciate it. God bless you.
Now that we're at the end of this, I guess all I can say is, if a stupid action figure doll can symbolize a meaningful Christmas for you, then I hope all of you listening find your own Turbo Man doll for Christmas. Merry Christmas, guys.
Who is my daddy and what does he do?